Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Black Press USA and the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Fire broadcast. And we are on fire this afternoon. The Universal Hip Hop Museum celebrates and preserves the history of local and global hip hop music and culture to inspire, empower, and promote understanding. Anchored in the birthplace of the culture, the Universal Hip Hop Museum in the Bronx will provide a space for audiences, artists, and technology to converge, creating unparalleled educational and entertainment experiences around the hip hop culture of the past, present, and future. Some of the founding members: Rocky Buchanan, Kurtis Blow, Sean L.G. Thomas, Grand Wizard Theodore, y'all know the master of the scratch, Mickey Benston, Ice-T, Joe Conzo Jr., Grandmaster Melly Mel, and the chairwoman of the Board of Trustees, Nana Carmen Ashurst. And look, Run DMC said it best. We had a whole lot of superstars on this show before, but today, man, this is LL's house. This is Chuck D's house. This is Rocky's house. This is Nana Carmen's house. And we also got Dr. Ben Chavis. And you know Dr. Ben Chavis, he's been around Hip Hop Summit, Belly. Look, let's start off with Rocky. Rocky, thank you all. First of all y'all, thank y'all for taking out the time. Know y'all busy. Rocky, tell us a little bit of background on this hip hop museum that we all are looking forward to.
So the Universal Hip Hop Museum began its journey about 8 years ago, as you mentioned the founding members' names. This museum is all about dedicating and preserving the culture of hip hop. I come from hip hop. I was there from the very beginning. LL is a huge supporter. Kurtis Blow, who I love dearly, is a close friend. He is our chairman emeritus. And, without these guys that, standing behind this project, it would be a struggle to get to where we are today. But I'm glad to say that, the museum is getting ready to break ground on construction, which starts at the Bronx Point next month. And, we're building a 52,000 square foot museum that will be the future home of hip hop history and culture.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that in itself is historic. And to have it in the borough where it all began is even more historic, and more important. So I just want to thank you and everyone for, taking the time out to participate on this panel today to talk about this project, because it truly is a monumental undertaking and it just requires everyone's support. So thank you for this time.
Oh, absolutely. And everybody know that Def Jam Records is the Motown of hip hop, right? It'll never be another Def Jam. And actually the first president of Def Jam, the first woman president in the industry, right, is Nana Carmen Ashurst.
In hip hop.
Welcome and in hip hop, period. Right. Welcome. And also your work on that board of trustees for the museum. Tell us a little bit about where you at right now and how things are going, how you see things.
Well, we're getting ready to break ground. So that's the big news, as Rocky just said. So we're no longer just a project. We're no longer just a vision. We're getting ready to we are a reality. We have a lot of support. We have an exhibition that's up in the Bronx already called Revolution of Hip Hop, so that people can actually come to the Bronx. And a lot of tourists have been coming. A lot of regular Bronx people have been coming to see what we're actually able to do. Right now, the exhibit is talking about the early days from the 80s to 84. And there's a lot of emphasis on what happened with Def Jam, because we were, in fact, a seminal label at that time and continue to be a force in the hip hop world. You don't mind if I take a little break and go over to there for a minute, right? But now, hip hop is certainly much broader, much grander, and we've been trying to bring that to the foreground, and it looks like it's happening. It's really absolutely happening at this point. We're real. We're real.
Well, thanks to your hard work for sure. And look, Chuck D knows how much I have so much love for him, so much respect. I think I listen to Public Enemy probably every other minute, right? That's my dude. But I'm gonna put Chuck on hold a minute because this dude right here, and I think Chuck won't mind me saying it. When y'all say GOAT, next in the word GOAT, G-O-A-T, in the dictionary, if you don't find this man's face, then it's the wrong word. LL Cool J. This dude, he done accomplished everything, right? He changed the game, and he continues to change the game. LL, it's a privilege to have you, my old schoolmate at Andrew Jackson High School.
Yeah.
What's up, L?
I mean, I'm just glad to be here with the panel. You know what I'm saying? Here with Chuck, Carmen. It's been years since, I feel like we haven't seen each other in a long time, but it's so good to see you. I just have so much respect for you, and just everything you did. And Dr. Ben, Rocky. And I'm just happy to be, supportive of this museum. It's definitely needed. Our culture needs it, the reality is what Rocky and Kurtis and all of these guys are doing is something that we need desperately. We need 200, 300, 400 years from now, people have to remember who we are. We have to control our own narrative. If we don't control the narrative, somebody else will. And we want the narrative to be right. We don't want this to be a popularity contest. It's about the people that started the culture, who put the work in, who built that foundation. They should be recognized, whether it's the Theodores, whether it's even, people earlier than that, all of them, they need to be recognized and need to get that respect. And so, for me, I've always, this is one of those scenarios where I just feel it just warms my heart to know that this is something that our culture is going to have. You know what I mean? It's really, really important,
Yeah, and we should mention, when I say changing the game, he done changed Sirius XM radio too. Look at that hat. Rock the Bells Radio. Yeah. And if y'all haven't checked out Rock the Bells Radio, then you know what? Just turn everything off.
Well,
you gotta go there.
The radio station is really about it serves the same agenda that Universal Hip Hop Museum serves, which is to uplift our culture, to make sure you don't have to be at the top of the Billboard charts this week to get the respect. Chuck D, Public Enemy, yeah, they're a Hall of Fame group, but they should also be lifted up by hip hop culture in general. Just recently I saw the cover of Rolling Stone magazine, and I saw Paul McCartney with Taylor Swift on the cover. We need to see those kinds of things happen in our culture. You know what I'm saying? I want to see Chuck D on the cover, with Meg Thee Stallion. You know what I'm saying? So I just feel like what you guys are doing with this hip hop museum is super important, necessary, and I fully support it. The idea and the agenda. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And Chuck has such a vision, and we all praise Chuck for his vision on everything, because he's set the tone for so much, and he's still schooling everybody on Twitter and social media and on Public Enemy Radio, Enemy Radio every single minute. Chuck, when you think back, did you ever see this though? The Universal Hip Hop Museum, did you see this back in 70s, 80s? Tell us what you saw and what it's like right now.
Well, number one, I pay attention. I learned from the people who lay the groundwork. Nana being the president of Def Jam, following her lead. That's the way of the future anyway. If women are not at least running 60% of the narrative, that's the future of the world, the future of this country. Kamala Harris is vice president. I trusted that energy in my vote. I necessarily wasn't really trusting the 80-year-old president. So, I mean, we got to put it where it's really at. So, LL, he knows that he's the GOAT. He's a president. He knows I pride myself on being a floor general. I'm one of his generals. My whole thing is that you have to have the final narrative on what you do. Curating the art form is what it's all about. When you understand the art forms, and the art forms go back hundreds and thousands of years, having that conversation and having that final word of what the art form is, that definition, is what it's all about. And you can't do it alone. You have to have people also in the fields making sure that narrative is not lost. So this is imperative and it's necessary that we have a voice on what this culture is. It's changed the world. It will continue to change the world, but having a voice on that change is what it's all about. And then also, you got to also be prideful in your lane. I look at L for how long, L? 40 years, man. I've been poking his back for 40 years. Go. But I pride my role of being out there in the field as a 5-star general to him being the GOAT, knowing that he's not alone. I fight to make sure that everything LL does should be saluted, as well as all the other greats that Rocky has put into this building, along with his cohorts, and what Dr. Ben and what you've done, Stacey, on just the Black press, making sure that that's not ignored. You know, I had a stack of things today. Matter of fact, I had to do a couple of things. I said, oh, that's Stacey Brown and Dr. Ben. Oh no, I can't do that. I gotta get on the line with my people. So you got to understand who you are, what you're working with, and making sure that you got the first and the last word of what it is. And on our culture and our art form and our history, we haven't had the last word. We haven't even had the defining word of what we do and what it is.
That's
and when you catch that back, that's also when you're going to get the
That's
most.
true.
History's written by the winners. You know what I mean? Whoever wins,
and we have to be the winners.
History, their version of history.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Nana.
And the digital world, now you see it and now you don't. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What you can see just from this conversation, that hip hop has a unique thing in that we think of each other as family. It's a very supportive community, and it's more than just the music. It's a culture, and it's a culture that has parts that we recognize in the museum. We don't take it lightly. We do not want to become marginalized. We don't want to become like suddenly hip hop becomes something that white people run and white people are the stars of. No, we created it. We are the ones who need to be saving it. We're the ones who need to be telling the story, as Todd said. And so this museum provides an opportunity for the community to come together, for the community to come and recognize who we are, and to serve, let us serve the greater world. But we recognize who we are to one another, as well as we recognize who we are to the world. And I think that's a distinction of the hip hop community. We are a community that is felt. We even talk about our shortcomings. We recognize that we're family, and we take responsibility for treating each other like family. And one of the things we do is we're not afraid to brag about our family. We know who did well. We know who has made a contribution, and we want to make sure that those people are recognized. We don't want anybody 100%. To get lost into history. Not at all.
100%.
And Chuck,
yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Al.
I was just going to say, it just can't be about. And there's nothing wrong with Billboard. Don't get me wrong. It's great to be #1 in Billboard, but it can't only be about who's having current chart success and just be based on that. Right. There are people that never hit the charts that made a huge contribution to this culture. And it can't be based on, you know, who has the most followers or who has the most money. Those things aren't necessarily the right metrics to measure your impact on the culture. You know what I mean? The metrics for the impact on a culture is your contribution that you made when this culture started, and the seeds that you planted, and how others were able to water those seeds and grow it. So there's so many people who need to be recognized in that way. And that's why this whole idea of preserving classic hip hop for me is so important, and why I'm so passionate about it, because I don't want to see what happened in rock and roll happen to hip hop. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
What's that?
Chuck, we appreciate what you said too about the Black press. Stephanie Mills said the same thing when we had her on. She said, you know what, I had some other things going, but when they told me Black press, Dr. Chavez, I'm getting on. And you know, Dr. Chavez wears many hats, literally and figuratively, because he's not only, you know, a hip hop icon himself. He's not only a civil rights icon, but he's also my boss. And I'm going to him right now. What's up, Dr. Chavez?
Well, listen, we're family. And I think Reverend Nana Carmen Oscar said it best. We're family. And it's time for the family to continue to celebrate the culture. I think there's been a lot of distractions. You know, I spent most of the 1970s in prison unjustly with the Wilmington 10. When I came out in the early 1980s, I saw this thing, hip hop rising. Man, I was so proud, man, because to me, the poetry, the lyrics, the dance, the art form, Bronx, you know, you got the museum located in the right place. So look, I'm going to be quiet. I'm just the OG here, saluting all the generals, male and female, because we do need to raise up a new generation of brothers and sisters who not only know the narrative and heard the narrative, but can be progenies of the narrative going forward. hip hop is not just an American phenomenon now. It's all over the world. It's a global phenomenon, you know. And I know we got a brother up in space now as the African American astronaut. I would say hip hop is intergalactic. Hip hop is all over the universe, and we should be very thankful because there's so much that divides brothers and sisters, even that divides blacks and Latinos. And the thing that hip hop started to do is started to transcend some of these divisions. And that's the beauty of hip hop. And of course, you know, there were a lot of player haters on the culture in those early days. And I was one of the few civil rights people that said, hell no, we defending our brothers and sisters. They not only have a right to express themselves, we should support because fundamentally, and this is my last point, people who are oppressed cannot use the instruments of oppression to get free. We cannot use the methodologies of oppression to get free. And to me, hip hop was the antidote to almost our own submission to our own oppression. And so hip hop to me has a liberation to it. It's an uplift to it. You know, it shatters
Absolutely.
what even the definitions and the stereotypes that are out there. So I'm so proud of all of you. You can rest assured that the Black Press, we're going to support this museum, not just at the opening, not just at the groundbreaking, but we're going to support this museum every day, every hour, every minute, every second, because this is what time. It's not only our past, it's our present, and it's our future. God bless all of you.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yes,
That's what
sir.
I'm talking about.
Yeah,
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
So
Nah,
important,
that's what I'm talking
so
about.
important what Dr. Chavis just said. And, you know, one piece of information that I like to share with everybody, just this past week, our development team signed a really historic deal with New York City laborers, the Laborers Union, Local 79, where we are going to take responsibility to making sure that this museum gets built by people of color. And we are reaching out to people who live in the NYCHA housing projects around the museum to give them opportunities to work on this project. So it was very important for me, not just to have a museum, but to have a museum that represents all of us first and foremost, but to have a museum that actually people are laying the bricks represent us.
You know, Rocky, it's interesting because, and I'm gonna throw this back at you and Carmen, particularly because I think you sent me something recently, Rocky, or someone from the camp sent me something. There's something that in New York they signed. You guys got signed this legislation where this whole thing with the Hip Hop Museum, but throughout the Bronx and other areas, they have to hire and pay, I think it was $40 an hour to the laborers from the projects.
Correct.
It have to come from the projects.
Correct.
That's
so
huge.
It's $40 an hour, retirement benefits and health benefits, unheard of in real estate development, unheard of. So, you know, this is another feather in the
script. That's flipping the script.
It's flipping the script in how real estate developers treat our people, right? So, you know, to have us connected as the cultural anchor of this Bronx Point development is a beautiful thing for us. And we should all celebrate just the fact that this is happening underneath our watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And Carmen, you must feel proud every single day about this. And you work so hard to see the fruits of your labor, Carmen. Kind of explain that to the viewers and explain it to us. How are you feeling this moment?
Proud, and I, like Dr. Chavis, is of the old generation, the older generation. I don't usually admit that in public, but you know, we're family, like I said. And so to me, it's like I'm watching the next generation, and now the next generation take on. I see this, you know, we're already able to see legacy because hip hop is just that old. You know, we're getting ready to be 50 years old. Which we'll be able to be celebrating when we open. We'll be celebrating the 50th anniversary of hip hop. So I wasn't back in that far back, but I was back far enough to be able to say that hip hop has grown, hip hop has extended. Our reach is, as we said before, is global. I remember when Chuck D actually first went to Asia and got off the plane, and people were wearing their hats on backwards and whatnot, and we were saying that was a big thing. Now we've gone even way beyond that. We've been instrumental in fashion. We've been instrumental in dance. We've been instrumental in art, visual art. We have impacted the world's popular culture in a way that no other culture has been able to do. And to be able to see it grow this way, and to now have an institution. The thing about an institution is that it's by definition and by design, it's greater than any individual. It will live beyond any of us who are sitting on this thing right now. And and we are ensuring that the next generation understands what this music is, what this culture brought to the world. And we're making sure that they hear it from the people who created it, not from the people who profited off of it, which is a different group of people. Now we need to be able to be clear on what we do and what we mean. And that's what I'm so proud of, that we are creating an institution that will outlive us all.
Yeah, and Chuck, I just got a message. One of the folks watching is the National Political Director for the DNC, who said he just posted what you said about Senator Harris, and it's important to remind who she helped to bring. And he's texting Assemblyman Michael Blake, who sends his best to you, Chuck. So you got folks that are really appreciative what you're saying and what you have done, not just what you're saying, because it's important. You know, we don't want to just speak things. We want to back it up. And you and Carmen and Rocky and certainly Elle, you guys have continued to back things up. Chuck, you've been all over the world. Dr. Chavis talked about the global impact, and we've seen, even in the last few years, prior to the pandemic, the crowds that you were bringing in. I mean, these are Michael Jackson-like crowds. What's that like when you take hip hop all over the world?
Well, coincidentally, that man on the screen took me around the world for the first time. He allowed me to use my passport and get a passport. So he took me on the first Def Jam tour as we opened up for him. And from that point on, I knew my position of what I was going to do to make my career different for what LL had already paved. L, you know, continued to be a superstar that he's our first superstar. He transcended everything. I knew that, okay, I could go around the world then, because everybody can't do everything. So I made it my mission to go around like Johnny Appleseed and plant seeds of hip hop. And a lot of that was also for what Bam and them did in the early 80s. And we just picked up on that momentum. So what we wanted to do is like they say in sports, spread the floor on hip hop. Yep. Like, listen, we from Def Jam, we gonna go to all these spots around here and pave these roads to make it easier for the Busta Rhymes and all them afterwards. So, you know, it was pretty much a no-brainer. We deserve no individual props for it. It's something that had to be done, and we took pride in doing it. I think Craig Hodges, the great NBA ball player, you know, asked a great question that we also to make relevant to what Rocky has done. It's like, at what point do we become mature? That's all it is. It's like, what point do we, you know, start to buckle our own pants, say this is ours? That's what it is, you know. When especially with a DJ Hollywood is a 65-year-old person, how does hip hop? How do we take care of that? How do we take care of him as hip hop? I think also the narrative also should be like telling young people, or young energy, I should say, young adults and alike. It's like, don't expect for what hip hop can do for you. What can you do for hip hop? And I think that's also what the museum's about. The museum is beyond a physical space. Absolutely. To make it a state of viral institution is the goal, where you think hip hop, which is not just a sound, it's style, sound, story, sight. If those four elements coming at you like that, you know, how do you secure that? And that's the beautiful thing about the building. The building is the hub. The building is a physicality. But here we are joined by technology. We are joined by pretty much it's the pro side of what the pandemic has caused, is that it sped us up in the technology. It sped us into saying, okay, I'm going to listen a little bit more with my ears, because I know I'm listening with my eyes a little bit too much. Technology could lead you into that. But now I got time to really check out Rock the Bells radio and soak it in. I'm slowed down for a minute. Everything is stopped. you know, and ball, LeBron and Dr. J is kind of like on the same plane right now via YouTube, because everything has stopped. Everybody's in ready, set. Nobody is going. It's ready, on your mark, get set. And this is where everybody's at. So looking at the Grand Wizard Theater and looking at DJ Khaled could be in the same sphere, circulating and rounding each other. You know, you go to Sirius and what LL has done, taking the backspin into Rock the Bells, and it's just created a universe within that. You know, that you're going up, you could go from a Shady at station 45 to 43 or Rock the Bells, and you're like, yo, man, this is seamless. So something that's new doesn't necessarily get the precedence or the preference over something that's institutionalized. It's for
Timeless.
us to submit the timeless, and redefining it, like classic, timeless, vintage, OG. Not, you know, and old is not bad. You know, old and raggedy might be bad.
Old is history.
Old and broke down might be bad, but it's Egyptian, it's pyramids, it's Giza, it's all that stuff. But you know what? Preservation does not come without concern and work. It's a lot of ugly work. It's rolling up the sleeves. It's getting ashy with it. It's like looking at it. It's dotting the I's, crossing the T's. It's the ugly work that's in curation. That's what Rocky has been talking about. That's what Rocky's been doing. That's what you've been doing, Stacey and Dr. Ben, with the Black Press. It's a lot of ugly ass work in there. But there's people, you know, there's gold in them hills. There's a needle in those haystacks when you find out there's people that actually love doing that. And I learned that from Nana years ago at Def Jam. She would find people that would like going and looking over liner notes and repairing. Like, they would love doing that shit. And if you don't find people that love doing the shit, the ugly work, you're not really going to build anything. Everybody want to, you know, scrape the cream off the top, you know, get up in the LL's, you know, tour plane and shit like that. But, I mean,
and you know what? To add to that, Chuck, I think the thing about it is, you know, the beauty of this is we see hip hop value in hip hop, right? Like, you know, we're not looking for outside validation. You know, we're no longer looking for someone else, another gatekeeper, another magazine, another group, another organization to validate what hip hop has accomplished. This is hip hop patting hip hop on the back. This is LL hugging Chuck D and Nana and hugging Dr. Ben and Rocky and all of us validating what we've done and what we've accomplished as a community and the effort and the contribution that we've made to the world. And we're saying, hey, this is valuable. This is special. This matters. Terror Dome is a masterpiece. Fight the Power is a masterpiece. It should be treated as such. And I think that idea is the idea that really resonates with people, because like, I don't need another organization or another group of 40 or 50 other guys to tell us what we know about our culture. You know what I'm saying? We are validating us now. And that to me is what really makes me, it fills me with pride and like really makes me feel good about being a part of, you know, our culture. You know what I'm saying? Finally.
It also sets a difference. You know, and I like to just say, oh, go ahead, Nana. Go ahead. I got a point I'm going to add to that.
One of the things that I, when you were asking like what I'm most proud of, when I see the Black Lives Matter movement, I feel that all of those people will acknowledge that they are part of the hip hop culture, that they understood that they had a capacity, that they had the right to have a voice because they grew up with hip hop as their soundtrack. That hip hop really gave people an understanding, young people, young Black people, an understanding that our voice mattered and our voice needs to be heard. And we can see in the young people who are doing these struggles right now, who are taking the struggles to the street right now, who are not letting George Floyd's death be in vain. Those are people come from our culture. They come from our community. They've been inspired by people like Chuck D and LL. I mean, and have been inspired not just to make music, but they've been inspired to raise their voices in this world and to make a difference.
And before you go back, Chuck, I just want to let everybody know how they can support the museum. UHHM.org. UHHM.org/donate. $1 can make a huge difference. So don't think that you can't be a part of it. You can be a part of that in that way. Just like a lot of us rush to support the Smithsonian's Black African American Museum of History and Culture, we can support the Universal Hip Hop Museum. El, you obviously, Chuck remembers, all y'all remember, especially if you're from New York, you remember how rap, they wouldn't play hip hop until late at night. Red Alert, Mr. Magic, and sometimes we get a little bonus, right? Lunchtime, they might throw something together. Lunchtime, video music box late at night. Now we talking about a Universal Hip Hop Museum. El, what's that like? I mean, because you worked hard, like Chuck worked hard. All y'all worked hard to break into this business and make it what it is.
I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, there are a lot of people. I mean, most of the people who are watching us now probably can relate to this idea that we only get played for a couple of hours on Saturday night or Friday night. When Chuck was at HBI, I mean, college radio. I mean, it's just so many. But the reality is like man,
Bobito.
We live in a world now where people can't even imagine not having access to hip hop all day long in every conceivable way, right? Like that's how much as a culture we've accomplished. We went from like 5% of a piece of pepperoni on a pizza to like a whole piece, like a whole pie, so it's like, for me, it's amazing. Like even with what we're doing with the station, which is supportive of the museum and supportive of what we're doing here, right? I went from I can't live without my radio with a boombox to having my whole own channel where where Chuck is interviewing and talking, and like we're all talking and vibing, and we're able to support each other. And not only that, like remember when I played, and I'm sure Chuck could tell you, when I play their music, those are royalties, those are sound exchange. Like I'm actually able to support my brothers. Like it's not just like all fun and games. Like when I play that music, our artists get paid, right? So it's like in a good way, right? Like they should, rightfully so, as artists. So it's like for me to have a museum now and to be knowing that I'm gonna be able to go to the Bronx and walk in there and I'll see different photos and different items and different things like that. To me is the ultimate, like I said, we're validating us. This is for us. It's for us by us finally. So it's a really, really good feeling. It feels amazing, man.
One of our viewers, Mick Benzo, says, I must repeat this. Let's not forget the Universal Hip Hop Museum is making a home for all hip hop artists, but the art of rap is now taking these acts on the road so people will pay attention. We are family, and rock the bells, keep playing the music. We have the market cornered. Chuck?
Yeah, big up to Benzo. He's driving that school bus, and it's a fun ride. When people get back together, I think it's like 2021 to 2022. Like I said, and it's on your mark, get set time. There should be no excuses not to be ready, set, go. When it's time to go, when people get in front of audiences, one thing that they know that at least a vintage caliber of artists from the past, at least they worked on their live appearances, meaning that there should be more management. There should be more performance training centers. There should be infiltration in what the Hip Hop Museum has going in the educational systems, especially in this curriculum, especially in the future curriculum that's from 2020 to 2030, where online teaching is just part of the norm now. What are they getting? Are they getting a curriculum that's from 1972 when I went to school, or are they going to get it from 2022? So the culture has had a lot of jewels in it to teach the world, and a lot of people have picked up and ran with it and have become more, more rounded, more intellectual, smarter, as well as rounded as far as just a way of life because of the spark plug of the music. Can the United States of America, one of the countries that the Hip Hop Museum speaks to, can it force a curriculum into the studies So that narrative would teach, the art form can also teach and open up all these other areas. That's just the way people are, and young energy is learning now. They're learning like this on a screen, whether we like it or not. Things physically might not be there in the same way. It could be used, and this is all the areas that Rocky was talking about earlier when he was talking about workers and compensation and building a building and all that. When you have a hub like that, you can make audacious, bold moves into areas where the hip hop genre idiom just ain't pressured to be something that got to be sold for it to work. Well, throughout the history of hip hop, it's been like, well, can it actually be sold to people, or can it not be sold to people? And then once you're merchant like that, you're in a problem area. And you already know, there's a difference between the black press and D press or oppress. You know what I'm saying? so we in the thing, man. We climbing out. We just trying to climb out of a thing that, in order to be validated, is based on metrics being merchanted or being sold. And if that's what's happening with curation looks at one and looks at the million the same way.
Yeah, and hip hop and the black press is intertwined in a lot of ways in what we've had to overcome. A lot of people don't know this. The black press is 193 years old, right? Founded before the end of slavery.
Wow.
Now think about that. And the founders said, we wish to plead our own cause. For too long, others have spoken for us. And those were two black men before the end of slavery, stepping up and changing the game the way you guys, Rocky, Carmen, of course, Chuck and LL, the way y'all changed it. Rocky, you like the businessman behind it all. You and Carmen, both the businesswoman, the businessman. What went into this from a business aspect? Because you got all the talent in the world. It's like having all the ammunition but no weapons. But you guys are the weapons. What went into it?
Well, I just want to say that what LL and both, Chuck and Nana and Dr. Chavis already said, it was just to make sure that our story was told by us and not by other people. That was really the main focus for me, just to make sure that we were in control of our own destiny in terms of making sure that our history was preserved and celebrated with the most integrity and most making sure that we can deliver it to the public in a very authentic type of way. But I want to tap into what Chuck was saying about an institution is more than just a museum. It is a service to the community. And hip hop, in my opinion, we have the opportunity to really super serve the people who live in our community, the people who made hip hop what it is. So we have the right to help people with healthcare, to give them job training, to empower people, to give them the skills so that they can get out of the circumstances of which they live in. That to me is the true power of what hip hop is. And until we all come together to understand that we are the powerful people that can bring forth change in this world the way we want to see the change, and we can do it through a hip hop lens. And when we understand that we are not in competition with each other, we're all together, as like Nana said, we are all family, that we can achieve so many great things. And once we harness that power, I mean, LL's already got the radio, and so does Chuck. They both got radio stations. We got our own airways. Pretty soon we'll have our own television. And with the museum, we'll have a destiny where we can make sure that people understand what the history truly represents. Yeah. Hip hop is America's greatest export. There's nothing else that has come out of this country more influential around the entire world than hip hop. And I'm sure Dr. Chavis can give a testimony to that.
Yeah, and before that, Dr. Chavis, I know LL has to drop off very shortly, so I want to make sure we get LL to get his last words in on the Hip Hop Museum and anything else that might be on the greatest's mind.
You know what? I just think what we're doing is just really special. I think it's important. I think it's timely and it's time for it. I agree with Chuck that as we look forward in life, and as we look forward in the world, and as kids are educated, we need to make sure that they understand this culture, where it came from, who the players were that are involved, so that as it gets passed on and spills over or gets passed over from generation to generation, the narrative is correct, and the right people are remembered, and it just doesn't become a glorified popularity contest, but the people that really put the work in are remembered. I want to look. I love everybody who's been at the top of the charts, and I understand my career, but I also love, I love Melly Mel, and and I care about Whipper Whip, what I'm saying? And I want to know, Ruby D. I want to know, I want to, like, I feel like the whole culture needs to be celebrated in a major way, calling Kurtis Blow the original king of rap and explaining to people, what that means and what he represented for us, on the cover of the albums with the, even before he made records, like when Run was his DJ and all of that, just this whole journey is, I think, super important, and we need to support it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just a big believer that every single person, from the Grand Mixer DXTs all the way to you name it, that they all get respected, represented, and lifted up. You know what I'm saying? And this is our culture. We're validating ourselves now. We're not looking for outside validation. And I think that that's a beautiful thing. You know what I'm saying? It truly is forced by us, Well,
we certainly appreciate you, L, and everybody keeps asking, can they run this on different sites? UHHM, of course. You can run it on the Hip Hop Museum site, and it's going to stay here on Facebook and Black Press USA and YouTube forever, because we're going to make sure it stays there forever. L, I know you got to run. We take care of yourself, and we'll keep watching NCIS.
I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Check out all those who want to hear the music. Listen to Rock the Bells Radio, Sirius XM Channel 43, and make sure you donate to the Universal Hip Hop Museum, even if it's $1, 50 cents, whatever it is. Every dollar matters. And thank you, everybody, for having me. I appreciate you.
All right.
Love you, Al.
All right, Al.
Peace.
Dr. Chavis, I know you wanted to jump in.
No, I'm just going to say that I think LL and Chuck and Rocky and Nana all have said it. This museum is vital to our culture, to our legacy, to our history. And we all should work hard now to make sure that people contribute to the opening of the museum. Something that LL said, I think we need to have not a hall of fame, but a hall of respect. We need to list all of those names, the names that the people that may not know, may not have heard of, but whatever contribution they made.
I love that.
Ought to be acknowledged, ought to be recognized. Because if we don't do it, check it out. Nobody else will. That's our responsibility, to lift up all those brothers and sisters, countless, sometimes nameless, who are out there. I just got a text from Sister Soldier. I said, Soldier, we're going to have you in the museum.
Wow.
Wow, there you go.
I mean,
there you go.
Look, we got a lot. I mean, there's so many brothers and sisters. And then when we take it also, Chuck, on the global level, we got to touch base with how hip hop has manifested itself in Africa, in the Caribbean, in Brazil, of all places, in Europe and Asia. I mean, I went to Hong Kong, man. I saw a young Chinese doing breakdance on top of the bars. I mean, come on, man. So we got a lot to celebrate. And I think this institution the ground is getting ready to break. And I think that is the most positive groundbreaking for the history of our people. And so we're going to be there to help celebrate it 100%.
Thank you.
And Chuck, I know you can make a lot of things happen. So make sure you talk to Doc, and make sure we get that hat. All of us get a complimentary Dr. Chavis hat.
Yeah.
Okay, absolutely.
So Carmen, have you heard what Dr. Chavis said? Your thoughts on his idea of making sure that everybody's recognized?
I think it's an important point, and I think that it's we start our chairman emeritus is Kurtis Blow, so he's obviously going to make sure that we never forget where we come from and where we owe our debt of gratitude for being the seminal people who made this music happen. But I also liked what you said about you, Stacy, about that hip hop was not just the performance. Well, maybe you didn't mean to say this, but I heard, right, that it was also about the people who were behind the scenes, the people who did the business. Chuck referred to it also, the people who did the dirty work. I think it's important that we recognize that the music is not just the performers, but that there are other people who created a business. We created opportunities, but the same way that the museum is creating opportunities for people in the Bronx, we created opportunities for young Black people to get into these industries that they would not have had through any other avenue, and that they've been able to make profound differences in the industry in a broader range, as well as making hip hop be something that did not just become a fly in the pan thing, but in fact, they really helped to build this institution of our music. And I really am glad that we're actually able to bring all of those aspects of the industry and the business into that discussion about hip hop as well. I also wanted to point out that we have in the museum, we have embraced technology right in our exhibits. When you come to our exhibits, you will see that you can. There's a timeline. There's a Rocky. How do you describe the sound? The backbeats.
Oh, the breakbeat narratives.
Yes.
Yep, with MIT and Microsoft.
So we have a partnership with. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Nana. You finish. You're doing
well,
a great job.
Just that we're in partnership with Microsoft and with MIT to bring the cutting edge of technology to hip hop, and we're using that technology not just to tell for the museum itself, but also as part of our education aspects. We have, Chuck, part of our work that is dedicated specifically to creating educational opportunities for young people that use hip hop. And in that same vein, we've been using technology to bring forth to young people what it is that we do, and to help them learn how to engage in hip hop in a whole other way.
Yeah, and Chuck, Rocky, as you guys speak of this, as Carmen speaks of those who we don't want to forget, the viewers are throwing out names left and right. Kool Herc, African Bambaataa, of course, Grandmaster
Yes.
Flash, Disco King Mario. I haven't heard that name in a long time. Cool DJ AJ, Lovebug Starsky, Jazzy J, Kev Rockwell. It goes on and on. Of course, Melly Mel, Scorpio, The Furious Five.
Can't forget the women, Sha Rock, Debbie D, and all the other beautiful women, the break dancers and the graffiti writers and all the Salt and Pepper. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. We could stay here for 3 hours naming people, but listen, it is the work of people like Nana, who I love dearly. To be our, it was so important to make her the chairwoman after Kurtis unfortunately had to step aside, because what we want to show the world is that an organization being led by a woman of excellent. She contributed so much to the culture. She is very thoughtful in her, thinking, and how she talks about the culture. And having her as our chairwoman is just so super important to me, and I'm just so glad to have her.
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody mentioned also, and we, unless we forget, of course, late last night, the only Black mayor in the history of New York City, David Dinkins, passed away, and we know that there was that song, right? Chuck, who was that group? Chuck, Rocky,
Tribe Called Quest.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. Q-Tip.
Yeah. I didn't know that. So that's news to me. Thanks for once again. Of course, the Black press would tell me, as I'm getting up and going on with my day, that Mayor Dinkins passed away. So it was appropriate to get that news straight from you, Stacy.
Age 93.
Yep. And what we had seen, like just what we had seen in New York at that particular time, hip hop helped clear the air, because that, you want to talk about haterism that was going on when Mayor Dinkins, before Mayor Dinkins, which also led to Do the Right Thing by Spike Lee, constructing a movie off of that atmosphere. And then when Mayor Dinkins was the mayor, what was going down, coming at him. So, and then post Mayor Dinkins. So We seen it happen in the city. Yeah, you're right. That eventually happened across the country, especially the last 5 to 6 years. Let us not digress. I said, I've been to 116 countries because of hip hop. And I would say that if the rest of the world, if it surpassed hip hop in its elemental fundamentals, it's only because hip hop was not properly based or hubbed in one particular place. It was in the air, it was viral in the spirit, but it wasn't based in one place. So the the Universal Hip Hop Museum, its necessity and its role is to be more than a museum. It's a base, it's a hub, it's a sun. You know, it's a star. It's really the solar system of the art form and culture. All revolves around that energy, and that's what it could be. And then it aligns the rest of the world into knowing that there is a place where that was spawned. Doesn't mean that it's the creation of our Black creativity, which comes from a whole bunch of different places across spans of, you know, thousands and thousands of years. But that terminology of hip hop started as an absolute beginning in one particular place and rose like a phoenix out of the ashes, and that should be revered, and it should definitely not just be reduced to just being a museum, a collection of artifacts.
Correct.
No, it's the minute by minute documentation of an existence, and then that's the strong points that will carry us on. And people ask me the biggest difference between 1989 and Fight the Power and the latest Fight the Power that's put together by Questlove. I said the biggest difference between 1989 and 1990 and 2020 is that 2020 and 1989, there's people no longer here, and there's people that have been born in the interim. And it's a long time in culture, but it's a short time in real life. But there's a lot of people who are no longer here. So you don't have that same spirit, wisdom, and the energy to react to what this thing needs. So that's why you always want to attack the ills and the isms, and you always want to build and institute the meaning of what this is to young energy. And you want to match young energy to the training and the understanding and the knowledge and the wisdom and all those things, and mesh them together to keep something like this energized and going forward and defined and determine what the narrative is. And I'm all for it. I've always been for it. And I respect my peers, I respect my elders, and I respect that youth energy that galvanizes movement.
Yeah, and just a footnote, Chuck, on Mayor Dinkins. You know, he instituted Fashion Week, Restaurant Week, Broadway on Broadway. He also initiated the revitalization of Times Square, and among his biggest accomplishments for the city, and they still reap that benefit today, he secured an unprecedented deal to keep the U.S. Open Tennis Championships in New York for the next 99 years. And that arrangement, get this, it generates more annual financial benefits than the Knicks, Mets, Yankees, and Rangers combined. That's Dinkins' real legacy. So there's your mayor.
And he is my fraternity brother. So big up to the brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha Incorporated.
How about and so you know, it goes back to Dr. Chavis's point. Not that Mayor Dinkins was a hip hop head, but it goes back to the point of making sure of showing respect to those who've earned that respect and not forgetting them, Carmen. Yeah.
I pitched myself because he called me by my name first. I was like, oh. A mayor knows my name. Wow. It was like,
And that's go ahead, Carmen. Go ahead.
He also brought Nelson Mandela to New York.
Yeah.
And yes, he did. And he had a ticker tape parade, and then he brought him to Manhattan. He brought him to the Bronx. Right. Yeah. He was a major mayor, right?
Correct.
But he definitely made sure that people understood the global responsibility of Black people. He certainly did.
Yeah.
Right.
And New York City.
The Apollo Theater.
Yes, sir.
They were trying to tear down the Apollo.
Yes, sir.
He helped save the Apollo Theater.
Oh, yes, he did.
He realized that New York is the hub and was the hub for a lot of our energy around the world. And he made sure it was a cultural hub and also a socio-political hub that had to be accountable to its citizenry. So, I mean, in more ways than one, you know, Mayor Dinkins made such a great impact in those 4 years.
Yeah, he absolutely did. And speaking of the Apollo there, Chuck, I remember you guys opened it up free and rocked the house.
Yeah.
And this was what, 91?
It was 92, and Nana Ashurst and also Marjorie Clark were instrumental in making us do that home video at that particular time.
Yeah.
You know?
And so Rocky,
But in
go ahead, Carmen.
In 1988, we did a show for Jesse Jackson at the Apollo,
Right.
when he was running for mayor. Running for president.
Right.
Right. And LL Cool J and Slick Rick and Eric B. and Rakim were on that show. Right. So and Kool Moe D, as a matter of fact. So it was 1988 was a good year.
And so Rocky, we're gonna see at least references to these things in the Hall of Fame. I mean, in the museum. I keep calling it the Hall of Fame.
Listen, the museum has a great curatorial team, being led by Paradise Gray. He's actually our chief curator, and he's blind. He's from the group X Clan, and with him leading the curation and Martha Diaz overseeing the education of the museum, we'll make sure that everything is documented and everyone is celebrated that needs to be celebrated.
Well, Dr. Chavis, I know you wanted to get in there, and we kept going over you. Go ahead, Dr. Chavis.
No, I'm fine. I'm just want to pledge to everybody that we're going to continue this. This is round one of this discussion. We're not going to end it. We're going to come back after the groundbreaking and every stage of the development. Nana and Rocky, you can depend, Chuck, you can depend on the Black Press. We're going to be there to help promote. I just got a text from Dougie Fresh. He told me to tell everybody hello.
Doug,
there you go. Another pioneer, right?
Doc Ben, your phone is on fire.
Well, listen, we again, Carmen, tell them the website. Tell people how they can contribute and be a part of this historic hip hop museum.
Go to UHHM.org, and coming up is Giving Tuesday. So please let everybody know that for Giving Tuesday, which is first Tuesday in December, that they can use that UHHM, Universal Hip Hop Museum, can be their nonprofit of choice. We are a nonprofit, so feel free to give, big and small. We appreciate them all. Universal Hip Hop Museum, UHHM.org.
There you go. I want to also give a special shout out to Russell Simmons. Russell's been a friend to the Black Press as well, but more importantly, Russell is the godfather of hip hop. So we want to definitely give a shout out to Russell and all his contributions. Rocky, I'm going to give you a last word, then we're going to let Chuck close us out.
My last word is, hey, man, I just love everyone for their support. We have an amazing team of dedicated people who are volunteering and sacrificing immediate benefit to make sure that this project actually comes to a successful conclusion. So just shout out to everyone that is working. Chuck D, he's been an amazing supporter, and I love him like a brother. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Rocky. Thank you for all you do. Chuck?
Well, that was the man that closed it out. I'm here, like I said, in the field. I think the job of the quote unquote artist, or if you happen to have some elevation as a celebrity or a star, is to actually divert, that energy and that light like a prism across the spectrum of what we all need to get it all moving together. So that's our job, not to absorb it, but to be able to deflect it into all those areas that need it. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, we appreciate you all. Stay tuned. 4 o'clock today, we are talking with the NBA legend, Isaiah Thomas, right here on Fire, Black Press USA. Carmen, Rocky, Mr. Chuck, and LL Cool J. We really appreciate you guys. And as Dr. Chavis said, the Black Press will be following this, and not just following. We're going to be pushing it, and we're going to be doing everything we can to support you guys. We're just a phone call away, as they say. Thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Stay safe and stay well. We'll see you at 4 with Isaiah Thomas.
Thank you. Peace.
God bless you.
Thank you. Peace.
Take care.